Online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit. HIMS.com/JOY.
Your Atlanta Braves station.
Hey, this is Ben Ingram. Thanks for listening to the home of Atlanta Braves baseball. News Radio WGNS, Murfreesboro, Smyrna.
The Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and online at WGNSradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Welcome in to the Wednesday Roundtable here on WGNS. Glad to have you with us on what is a clearing Wednesday morning. It rained overnight, and Brian Barrett with Rutherford WX, Rutherford Weather. And Brian, this is the best kind of rain. It happens overnight, clears out in the morning, and hopefully cleaned out some of the tree pollen that was in the air, and because it's been super heavy the last day or two.
And an excuse not to have to mow today.
There you go.
It's too wet. That's what I say.
Blue Raider baseball, it looks like the rain's going to be out, so we'll have Middle and Tech tonight at 6 o'clock. Last night, the Blue Raiders won a real pitcher's duel last night, 16-15 in 10 innings last night over at Reese Smith Field. So that's coming up tonight. The old pro, Dick Palmer, will have that for you beginning at 5:45. Well, today, real special show, and I say that every week, and I truly mean it. And today is a day I met two guys here about a month ago at an event on campus. And Rick Glaze was there to do a little talk about his new book called Ralph and Murray. And his childhood friend, Cecil Elrod Jr., was there. And, of course, those of you who've been around here for a long time know that Cecil has ties here to the radio station with his family who put it on the air back in the 1940s. And Rick, I'll get you to pull that a little bit closer right there. But, Rick, first of all, thank you, both of you guys, for making the trip down today.
Well, Chip, thanks for having us. It was a pleasure to have you at MTSU for our talk around a month ago. I've got an exciting book, but it's been exciting for me. It's exciting to write, and it's exciting to hear what people say when they read this story about growing up in a small southern town, which just happened to be Murfreesboro, around 1959.
Yeah, Ralph and Murray is the name of the book, and basically it is memories of Murfreesboro, and that's what our show is about today. And Ralph and Murray could very well be Rick and Cecil. It could be the title, but Cecil, when you got here a few minutes early and started looking around at some of the old pictures, I'm sure it brings back memories of your dad.
Oh, definitely. In fact, many of the pictures were in the old studios that were on the square back then above the French shop, Cecil Elrod's French shop. And Rick and I were just talking about it. That was part of the inspiration of Ralph and Murray, I think, the places and things in Murfreesboro that intrigued us, and the station really did intrigue us. We would come early on a Saturday morning with my dad when he would sign on and play around and pretend like we were broadcasting.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, you were telling me about how some of the layout was in the Elrod building there on Church Street.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it stirred memories. And Rick, kind of give me, we talk about the inspiration. When did you decide that you wanted to put some memories into book form?
Well, Chip, I'd written 2 novels already and a book of short stories, and I was looking for another topic, and I got this idea for a memoir. And so I started sketching out some memories from the past, up at Center Hill Lake and things like that. And I was set to do some interviews out west, and the pandemic hit, and I couldn't get out west. And if I did, nobody'd want to meet in a room because we're all scared of the pandemic. So I was talking to Cecil about some of these stories, and he seems to remember a lot of them. And I had him over during the pandemic. Of course, he'd sit on one side of the room and I'd sit on the other because we were scared of the pandemic and the virus. But he told these stories, and we reminisced about it. I recorded most of them. And when I couldn't get to California for the original idea of the book, my wife said, well, why don't you have the dog narrate it? And so this is a story about me, but Cecil's a big part of it. But it turned out that I think it was more a story about Murfreesboro and the time and the place in 1959, told by the dog and the cat. And when they start talking, what are you going to do? You got to let the dog talk, right?
Exactly. And Cecil, when you all did the talk over at MTSU, and I think I brought it up to you guys after the day, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, that this book, Ralph and Murray, and the adventures of growing up in a town in the 50s and 60s, is, it doesn't matter if it's Murfreesboro or my hometown of Columbia or Lewisburg or Pulaski or Franklin. It all kind of translates, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. And you know what I think people have really enjoyed about the book? They can put themselves in their hometown.
Yeah.
Rick and I have talked about this many times, but my nephew-in-law is from Amsterdam, and he talks about growing up in Holland in a smaller village, and he can relate to everything that we did, there. So it's about so Murfreesboro is the place, and we think the greatest place.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also about, it can be applied to just most anything, and people laugh and have a good time, think about their own memories, and that's what it conjures up when you read the book.
Now when you look at one of the things, to back up just a little bit, you guys were truly best friends growing up, and as life takes us through whatever we are, you both ended up in California, and then you both ended up back in Tennessee again, in the Nashville-Brentwood area where you both live now, and we're so grateful you were able to come over today. So kind of give us a little bit of a flavor of the travels that you guys took in your lives to end up back here in Middle Tennessee.
Well, Chip, I got to California kind of in a strange confluence of events. My dad died, and my mom moved out there where my brother was, and I went out for a visit and only stayed 35 years. I raised two daughters out there, and it was an interesting place to live. But there's no place like home, and I always thought of myself as a Murfreesboro guy, even out there in the middle of Silicon Valley. And so, and I think Cecil wanted to get home at some point, and he made it too. So we're both happy to be back here in Middle Tennessee, and ecstatic about being back.
Yeah, and Cecil, you went out there and you were actually had a little taste of the movie business and some of that too. Yeah,
I went to Los Angeles, and Neiman Marcus out of Dallas was just opening in Beverly Hills, and little did I know that I'd fall right back into retail from our store on the square. But you talk about a culture shock to go from the public square in Murfreesboro to Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills was a little bit different, because the movie stars were moving in and out, and it was just a lot of fun. But it did give me the opportunity to, I got into the wardrobing part of film. So I would go on the set, and they would select clothes from the store, and then I had a studio girl that would, do all the work, and we'd suggest things for the people. Like, for instance, if you all can remember Dynasty, which was big.
Oh, yeah.
We furnished all the furs for that. So we would go out and let the stars try on the fur coats, and, it was that kind of an experience that was great for me. I loved it.
Oh, wow. That's pretty neat. But again, of course, it all wound up back here in the mid-state, and it's where it all started, right here in Murfreesboro. And when you started to set the scene in the book, and one of the first things you see is a little, it appears to be a hand-drawn map of the town, and it's kind of interesting because it really sets the stage for the book about where the square was, where the campus was, where Daddy's house was, things like that. But what was a typical day for you and Cecil growing up when you first became friends and became big buddies?
Well, we lived about 3 blocks from each other.
And we're talking about over here off East Main, right?
We are. We are East Main and Tennessee Boulevard, which is Middle Tennessee Boulevard now.
Right.
No, the map, it started out as a hand-drawn map. I did it, but I had my graphic designer, who also did the great cover for Ralph and Murray, do it. But there's Cherry Lane on there. There's Tennessee Boulevard. There's Main Street. There's Campus School. There's Central High. Those kind of things. But what's fun about it is what Cecil was talking about. People from all over relate to this time and place of growing up. I have a friend who read the book early, a little bit before publication, and she said, it was just like when I grew up. And she didn't grow up here. And I said, well, where did you grow up? She said, San Francisco. So what we're talking about here is a book about a time and a place, and kids and what they do, and kind of fun, exciting things that kids do. So even though it's set in Murfreesboro, and I say that in the foreword to the book, the rest of the book is about a small town in the late 1950s, and it could be your town too. Yeah, absolutely. And when I heard your talk and have read parts of the book, it translates so well to things that I grew up, 10 years later, probably, but it is. Now, Cecil, where you grew up, and you talked about how you went to campus school, went to Central High School, went to MTSU, and you could walk to all of them.
I rolled out of bed and went to school. That's what it was. It was that easy.
You could literally almost see every school you ever went to from your house.
Yeah. We lived right on the corner of Tennessee Boulevard in Maine, and it was, really, that's what it was. And then my grandfather lived one block toward the square, and later on, when I was in high school, I moved in with him after my grandmother died. And I walked right across the street again. Pop's house became kind of a gathering place for a lot of centralized students because it was easy.
Well, give us our memories a jog and a tour of what the square was like in the late 50s, early 60s. What are some of the stores? Obviously, Cecil Elrod's French shop was the place that you were in and out of most of the time, which WGNS at the time was on the third floor of that building, right there, what is next to Puckett's right now, right?
Yes.
Well, there was Stickney's Drugstore that was right across the street from the Princess Theater. And you old-timers remember the Princess Theater. We went every Saturday morning. I think it was 10 cents to get in. Yeah. And invariably, it was a cowboy and Indian show. We don't see those much anymore.
That's right.
But they were popular, along with John Wayne and others.
Roy
Rogers, as well as World War II movies. They were very popular at the time. And so...
because you think about it, those guys they're freshly back 10 to 12 years at the time.
Yeah. Cecil and I were born 4 years after World War II ended. And, of course, our fathers were involved in that as in the U.S. military. So it was a big deal. Think about a world war. It's something to really stop traffic, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. And the other around the square we talked about where Puckett's was Woolworth's, which was a, if you never grew up around a Woolworth's, you don't.
Five and dime.
Yeah, five and dime store. And did they have a was there a food counter in that Woolworth's?
No, not in that one.
There was in downtown Nashville.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Which was very famous, obviously.
Right, for the civil rights movement.
Right.
But the Woolworth store, Mr. Granville Ridley owned that building, and it was one of the larger stores on the square.
Mm-hmm.
It was five and dime business was a big deal. And then around where, if you went toward Maple Street from Woolworth's, McClellan's was on that. Another five and dime was on that side of the square, and that actually was the McClellan building was the first Elrod Brothers building back in the late 1800s. But the square changed dramatically through the years and was more popular sometimes than it was the other. What I was thinking about in the middle was J.C. Penney, which that store was really our first department. Well, the Goldsteins, of course, were on there as a department store. They were the first and probably the best that we had. But Penny's came in, and then they eventually moved over and developed Penny Plaza,
Right.
which was there for a number of years. But and I remember driving in on Maple Street. There's a Murfreesboro Brews, or what's the name?
Borough Brews.
Borough Brews.
Yeah.
Well,
and
that
burgers. Borough
that
Burgers
was
and
the
Brews.
addition of Murfreesboro Bank and Trust.
Right.
Way back, and I remember Mr. Al Mifflin, who was the president at that time, standing at the door and giving new quarters. And my mother gave me all kinds of fits because I went through the line twice and got 2 quarters. I was only supposed to get 1.
Hey, it's all about the profit margin here. That's right. So we are talking today to Rick Glaze and Cecil Elrod Jr., and the book is Ralph and Murray, and we'll continue to talk about our memories of Murfreesboro this morning here on the Roundtable on WGNS.
This is Stan with Parks Auction. The annual Milton consignment sale coming up Saturday, April the 20th. The auction starts at 9.
Good and used farm, construction, and landscaping equipment, trucks, trailers, RVs, boats, campers, and more.
If you got good consignments, holler at me.
Don't miss this community event. This Saturday, the auction starts at 9, and there's even free food.
Be with us Saturday at Milton, 11132 Las Casas Pike.
Firm 3984.
Finding that missing shin guard, remembering whether it's a home or away game, getting the right kid to the right playing field on the right day. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with auto owners, insurance doesn't have to be one of them. We work with independent agents who keep insurance simple so you can worry about more important things, like not being that fan. Oh, come on, Raf! That's simple human sense.
Rayburn Insurance in Smyrna.
Come see me, Rick Hall, at Rayburn Insurance in downtown Smyrna today.
Hey fellas, if you've been feeling tired and grumpy and have noticed a lack of motivation and drive, you may have low T. Low testosterone levels can cause weight gain, loss of muscle mass, and so much more. I recommend Low T Center, which is where I get my levels tested. They make it quick and easy to get your levels checked, and it's only $25. And with their on-site lab, you'll get your results back in about 25 minutes. Most insurance is accepted for treatment. Go to lowtcenter.com now to book your appointment online. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
Some people drive past Middle Point Landfill and see a mound of dirt covering yesterday's garbage, but we don't see that. At Middle Point, we see yesterday's trash as tomorrow's opportunity. We see an opportunity to convert naturally occurring gas into a low-carbon alternative to fossil fuel. We're Middle Point Landfill, and we see so much more than waste. Middle Point's vision doesn't end at the start of our driveway. We're Middle Point Landfill, and we truly see a brighter future for all of us in Rutherford County.
Adams Place was a very, very good thing for us to do at our ages or earlier, because I would have been more able to do a lot of the things that are here for us to help us keep feeling younger.
I saw this young lady with her father. She said, yeah, I'm trying to convince my dad that it's better to move in 5 years earlier than 5 minutes too late.
I'm Terry Deal. Call me about Adams Place. Phone 615-904-9111. Memorial Boulevard, across from Walmart.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by the law offices of John Day and Americare Pest Control.
This is a paid legal ad.
You've probably heard it a million times. If you're injured, call a lawyer. And you probably haven't, because you don't know how much it will cost, how long it will take, or even if you have a case. At the law offices of John Day, we provide a free initial consultation because we understand that folks don't want to pay a lawyer only to find out they don't have a case. If you think we can help, we do so on a contingency basis, which means we only get paid if you do. Seriously injured? Call me, John Day.
It's so important to support our local businesses. WGNS encourages you to shop local. The Red Cross is critically low on blood. And our Murfreesboro Red Cross is at 501 Memorial Boulevard. Look at your schedule, then call the Red Cross and make an appointment to give blood at a time that fits your schedule. Phone 800-RED-CROSS. Maybe you just moved here and want to learn more about our community. Well, this Saturday, head over to the one-room Ransom Schoolhouse and meet some friends from the Rutherford County Historical Society. They'll be interacting with you about local history. Ransom School is at 717 North Academy Street. In that free session, 9 until noon this Saturday. Saturday is also Earth Day on the Murfreesboro Square. Our hats off to Middle Tennessee Electric for again making this possible. Earth Day is 10 until 2 all around the courthouse on the square this Saturday. And Saturday night brings the Backstage Bash to the Center for the Arts at 110 West College. Yeah, that's this Saturday night. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
Partial sunshine develops here this afternoon. We'll see a high around 80 degrees. Winds out of the southwest around 10 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS.
Currently, it's 66.
Rutherford County's 23rd Annual Earth Day celebration is Saturday, April 20th, 10 to 2 on the Murfreesboro Square, and MTE is proud to be the primary sponsor and organizer. Free fun for the whole family, April 20th on the Square. More information at rcearthday.com.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
Welcome back into the Roundtable. We're talking memories of Murfreesboro and the book Ralph and Murray, the author Rick Glaze and his childhood and lifelong friend Cecil Elrod Jr. with us, and Rick. I always enjoy looking at chapter titles whenever I pick up anybody's book and check those out, and of course, the first one, Ralph and Murray, that kind of introduces the two main characters who are telling the story of this book. But Uncle Buck, which is funny, a friend of that's, I remember the movie Uncle Buck, and I have my nieces and nephews call me Uncle Buck. But here we go. Stuck in the garage, Aunt Betty, the big ones eat the little ones, don't get above your raisin, behind the couch, and the car wash. So there's all of those. You don't even have to tell the story. I can almost guess what a lot of those kind of things are just from the vivid titles you've come up with.
Well, Chip, I'm also a songwriter. I have a couple of CDs out, and I have some cuts in the Nashville area. But when you write songs, you're looking for a hook, something to grab people. And, as a songwriter, I'd write that chapter and say to myself, what's the hook in this? And I put it as a chapter, and I love that that grabbed your attention, because I thought it was fun. All books don't do it, some do, but I thought it was really appropriate for this one.
Talk a little bit about how Rick and Murray tell the stories.
Ralph and Murray.
Ralph and Murray, yeah. Not Rick, you're Rick.
Rick tell the story how Ralph told the story.
That's right, yeah.
Well, I started off writing this, and as I said earlier, it was going to be a memoir about me and Cecil. All the things we did around town were really important, but I was having Ralph narrate it, and really didn't know how that was going to turn out. I went through a couple of chapters, and I thought, this is taking a different twist than I was thinking. But as Ralph had his memories, I mean, he's a foot high, and we were 4.8 feet high. So he was way down there. He had a different look at the world.
Different perspective.
And Ralph just started taking over, and I just let him run with it. I said one time in one of my promo pieces, who could argue from Ralph's own mouth about what happened in Murfreesboro? So that's kind of the silly way to answer that.
When people look at this, I'm assuming that most of what we're reading is actually truth, but told in a fictional way. Is that?
Yeah.
How do you describe this of what we're reading?
Well, it's a real good question, because when you have a book where the dog is telling the story, there's always a little bit of okay, the dog can't really talk, but I think that in fact, I'm sure that most of these chapters have a thread of truth in them, meaning something like that pretty much happened. Now, people ask me about the character Zeke, who was a hobo, but we call him a neighborhood character. And a lot of that was, I make it clear that Ralph one time said, do you think Zeke, that really happened to Zeke, or he's making that up? And the answer was, I'm not sure. And it turns out that probably Zeke was making that up about sailing around Cape Horn in a sailboat and going to the Marquesas Islands in the South Seas and so forth. So that was a little bit of fantasy, but it made it for a fun story about weaving Zeke, the neighborhood character, into the story.
But the real part of when we met Zeke was the where that was all staged, and Ricky took the ball and ran with it all the way to Cape Horn. But it was a little creek behind Dr. Shacklett's office, which was the end of Tennessee Boulevard before it turned into Clark Boulevard. It was still farmland, so that we could ride to the end of that. And I don't think our parents knew we were going that far, but we were going that far. And we developed this little area called I always called it the Cecil Ricky place. He still calls it the Ricky Cecil place. So that's a bit of a controversy.
I told him when he writes his own book, it can be the Cecil Ricky place.
That's right. It's all about perspective again. Yeah.
But old Zeke comes in that. Here we had built a little fort and had a dam in the creek and all these things. We couldn't wait to go out there on Saturday mornings and play around in the Cecil Ricky place.
Now that office, Dr. Shacklett's, is that where isn't there a chiropractor in
there?
There
is. Yeah,
okay.
It's still there.
And so, boy, I tell you, Dr. Shacklett got a lot of people over the spring and winter crud in his day, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When I was writing the book, I spent time in Murfreesboro. I'd walk in front of the residence where the book is set for Ralph, his home, where I lived during that period. But I went out to the Ricky. In the book, I call it the Ricky Buddy place because he was Buddy.
Well, and Buddy is my nickname. So
gotcha.
And I want to clarify one more thing quickly. I'm the third instead of junior.
Oh, okay.
And I'm telling you that. I think that's a little too fancy, and I don't need to say it. But people knew my father as Cecil Jr., so I don't want them to think he's been resurrected doing this broadcast from the old WGNS.
There you go. Understand. But now, you guys were pretty good boys growing up. And
I don't know.
Did most of the stuff, but there had to be some mischief along the way. And I've heard one story about getting locked out of somewhere, and then other mischief ensued from there.
Well, during the pandemic, I talked about Cecil coming over, and we talked these things over, and he said, "Remember when we locked Blackie, your dog Blackie, in the upstairs of the garage?"
That's it.
Yeah. And now, Blackie was the name of my dog, but
in reality, that was
ironically the German Shepherd that I grew up with. His name was Blackie too.
Yeah.
So
maybe that was a generic name for dogs, but I changed it to Ralph because the story in the first chapter is how the name got changed. And I told my wife that story. She said, "Well, your dog is named Ralph. It's not Blackie." And so, you have to do what you're told when you're married.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Cecil said, "Do you remember that time we locked him in that upstairs attic in the garage?" And I said, "Well, I kind of do. Tell me about it."
Mm-hmm.
So we went through, he went through the different iterations of that garage. It was an apartment for MTSU students for a while, but before that, and during this time, it was basically a storage area. And this guy, Cecil, started telling me about the history of different pieces of furniture, desks and chairs that were up there. And so, I'm a writer, so I took that and ran with it. And we have ghosts up there in the attic that Ralph talks to and gets to know them and learns a lot about the history of Murfreesboro just from the ghosts and the furniture sitting there. It was fun to write.
Wow.
The garage was in the back of our house on Main Street in Tennessee Boulevard.
Right.
And I want to bring this in just because the transition from this storage place, and it did have furniture from 3 families that had lived in that house before us.
Oh, wow.
So it was a lot of stuff to talk about. But when my mother decided that something needed to be done with that, my father decided he wanted to make a home studio for WGNS. And he went in with acoustic ceilings and paneling and all that and made it a pretty nice space.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the college students eventually, she wouldn't let him have the studio there. She said, "That's too much traffic. I don't want him in the driveway." And so it never materialized. I just wanted to bring that in because of the home studio. But when it was a storeroom, it really was fun. Rick and I would go up there, and it was like being in just a place you've never been in before, with all kinds of different things. And it got more and more interesting, but we were also sort of out of circulation of the house and neighborhood. It was our own little place, you know. And Blackie would always go up there with us. I remember that. We had a little house dog, so it wasn't out in the yard, but Blackie would go up, and that's when Ralph discovered all the memorabilia that was up there. It was pretty cool.
Well, Ralph meets Buster the squirrel. And, of course, Buster can talk to Ralph, and Ralph can talk to Buster. And he introduces him to some of the ghosts that the furniture belongs to. And so that was a lot of fun. Ralph was stuck, and Buster tried to get him a way out, because Buster could get in and out.
Well, we didn't explain that. We went out one day. We went down. It was upstairs apartments. We went out and pulled the door, and it had a lock on it. And so we locked Ralph in there by mistake,
inadvertently. Yeah.
And then we didn't know where Ralph was. Rick was looking for Ralph. We forgot that he was up there with us. So it was just wanted to.
Well, obviously, while he was locked in there, he had plenty of time to explore and talk to the squirrel. Now, if folks who are watching on YouTube, you can see here's the front of the book, and there is Ralph and Murray on the front of the book, and we've talked about Ralph a lot. So, kind of give us the mini bio of who Murray was and how he related to Ralph.
You know, Chip, I don't know how Murray came about. I just tell you, I started that first chapter.
So he was not necessarily anybody's cat.
No.
Okay.
No, he's fictional.
Okay.
As well as his parents who live next door. I drive out there and I sit in front of that house. I hope I don't get arrested. And look and see, well, that fence isn't really there that Murray sits on. Murray always appears on top of the fence. He doesn't do any tromping around. Now, that's going to change in the new book, the next book. But I made Murray up. He was just a character.
To help tell the stories.
Help tell the story. And in the beginning, Ralph would run out and try to chase him, and Murray would act like a vicious lion. And he said, this is kind of fun for both of us. I like doing that. But as I said, this book evolved. It was a fun book to write, because I'd finish one chapter and not know what the next chapter was going to be. And it just moved along. And each chapter is what I call a little vignette, or a little story unto its own about these guys. The thing that holds that book together is Ralph and Murray. They're in every scene.
Yeah.
Ralph needed an animal friend, so it was important. But what Rick just touched on that I think is important about the book, it can also be a children's book. It's an adult book, but it's a book that children enjoy, and the ghosts aren't too scary. It's not, you don't have to worry about the story being too different for a child. But I know some of my friends have read it to their grandchildren, and the grandchildren are really into it, because it's
they like when the animals come alive
and the adventure, and they can't imagine what we're talking about. Some of the things that were important way back when, compared to their life now. They're on a screen or something else, and here Grandma's reading the book to them, and they get all involved. So it's a good children's book to have in your library also.
And by the way, the weather this morning kind of reminded me this is a perfect rainy afternoon read, and you can get through it in an afternoon pretty easily, or an evening. And when you talked about, it was funny that you talked about that the kids now with the screens, the important things in our lives back then were making sure our bicycle was in good shape. Yeah. Also, that you all had your little place. We all had our fort or wherever whatever that was, but it was our kind of our private place and all of that. But it's really interesting, because here I told you guys I walked out of my house this morning without my cell phone, and I've had anxiety ever since. And back in those days, you just went and you did stuff. Your mom and dad didn't overtly worry about where you are, but everybody's dad had either a yell or a whistle, and you knew exactly whose dad that was or whose mom that was when it was time to come in and have supper.
You did. And you know what, as readers around the country read this book, they say, well, it was, I said, you know, we'd get on our bikes and we just leave and nobody worried about us. We just came home for supper. And they said, it was just like that for me. And I said, well, where did you grow up? You know, Illinois, Missouri, California. So I think that's why I keep going back to this book, Ralph and Murray, is about a time and a place. And Ralph and Murray, the dog and the cat, deliver these stories to us about our time and our place back in those days.
Well, I was the red bicycle behind his blue bicycle, and he always liked to tell me what to do, so I had to follow him wherever we went. But it was fun. As soon as our parents would let us cross the main street, and then the few streets to the square, we eventually could ride our bike all the way to the square. So that was a big treat, you know, just like going out to Clark Boulevard. But as you said, it was, you got on your bicycle and you just went and did great things, fun things.
Yep. And, you know, there's a few areas that are a little bit different. We're going to talk about that. Brian is back. It is time to get our final break in, and that's a good time for us to kind of step aside for just a minute. We'll take a time out and final segment. The hour goes quickly when you're having fun like this, as Rick Glaze and Cecil Elrod are here with us on the Roundtable here on WGNS.
Does your home need freshening up? Let our family at Farrah Construction help you. We do painting, new flooring, anything that you need. If you can dream it, Farrah Construction can turn it into reality. Farrah Construction offers high-quality craftsmanship, quick response, and attention to detail. For home restoration at a price you can afford, Farrah Construction can get the job done no matter how big or small it is. I'm Ron Hall. Shop local. Let our family business help you. Farrah Construction Company.
Hey guys, if you've noticed a lack of energy, motivation, and drive, it could be low T. Be sure to schedule your health assessment at Low T Center. For established patients, they offer the convenience of physician-monitored self-inject at-home testosterone treatments with an average payment of $150 a month cash pay, including labs and medication. If you need the convenience of at-home treatment, Low T Center makes it easy, shipping treatments directly to you. Go to lowtcenter.com now to book your appointment online. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
This is Kim Dunaway from Sunshine Nutrition Center. You hear me on Monday mornings at 7:20 talking about how to lead a healthier lifestyle. We carry supplements, personal care, and grocery items at both our Murfreesboro and Smyrna locations, family owned and operated since 1989.
Spring has sprung, and that means it's time to start planning for your summer road trips. With Bud's Tire Pros by your side, your vehicle will be ready to see the mountains, the beaches, and everything in between. With Bud's Tire Pros' full line of Michelin tires and products, you'll have the peace of mind to hit the road no matter what you drive. Bud's Tire Pros is only 3.5 miles from the Murfreesboro Square. Call Bud's Tire Pros at 896-TIRE or online, Bud's Tire Pros, TN.com.
This is Pastor Nikki Ajapong, lead pastor of Holy Hill Chapel in Murfreesboro.
Here are sermons on WGNS every Sunday night at 7:30.
Extending the love of God.
Reviving the community at Holy Hill Chapel, TN.org.
It's a Slick Pig barbecue, spicy wings and Brunswick stew, everything made fresh for you at the Slick Pig barbecue. There's lean smoked turkey and chicken too, ribs so tender don't need to chew. Well, come on folks, I'm telling you, it's a Slick Pig barbecue. In 1920 East Main, you're gonna love the pig.
The Slick Pig Barbecue, a Murfreesboro tradition.
Life is challenging and ever-changing. Take control with passive income through real estate investing. Learn how. Learn now. Let Del Walmsley and Lifestyles Unlimited's investors and mentors show you. Meet Del's team live in Chattanooga 2 days only at the Marriott downtown, Saturday and Sunday, May 4th and 5th. Register now at GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. That's GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. Enter promo code 2024 for a special discount offer. GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. Code 2024.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
Welcome back in. The book is Ralph and Murray, and The author, Rick Glaze, is here. And, Rick, it is this book is available at the normal online locations, right?
It is. It's available at Barnes & Noble here in Murfreesboro.
Okay. You can walk in and buy it.
You can walk in and buy it. And it's available on Amazon and in two forms. You can get it as a Kindle digital book, and you can get the paperback from Amazon.
Good deal. And your other books, I was very fortunate to receive, and can't wait to dive into. This is going to be my vacation book, Spanish Pieces of 8. My next beach trip. That sounds like a good one that I'll read at the beach. And it says Pieces of 8, Book 1. Does that mean there's going to be a book 2?
Book 2 is in editing right now. It's finished.
Okay.
It's going to be called 8 Pieces of 8. I'll give you a brief summary of Spanish Pieces of 8. It's about discovering, I call it a modern day treasure hunt.
Ralph and Murray aren't on a sailboat, are
No,
they?
they didn't make it.
No, but there's a little bit of Spanish Pieces of 8 in part of the Zeke story,
yeah.
as well as sailing down to the South Seas, which really came from my research for Pieces of 8. But this book is about a Tennessean, of course, who makes a lot of money in Silicon Valley and starts sailing, and he finds Spanish Pieces of 8 and leaves a mystery for his kids. The second book is also Spanish gold and silver coins, but I moved the setting to the limestone caves in Middle Tennessee. So the mystery and the treasure hunt takes place right here in town. There's two scenes at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge in Nashville, and other scenes throughout the Middle Tennessee area. So it's going to be fun, probably be out later this year.
That's neat. And you also have The Purple River, which you published in 2021. And another one that obviously makes me smile, one called Jackass, a short story collection you published in 2022.
Yeah, that was fun. I wrote those short stories when I was taking writing classes at Stanford University in California, and I decided to put them in a book, and they've been very popular. Jackass is about taking a mule out of the Grand Canyon, and he wasn't exactly a jackass, but they called him a jackass in the story.
There you go. So you can find if you go to Amazon, just search Rick Glaze, and it's Glaze, and you'll find all of those books there,
yes,
right?
You will.
Good deal. Well, as we talk memories of Murfreesboro, and you guys, in a town like Murfreesboro, there's so much that centers around. Well, in this case, it's a college town, so much centered around the university, which at the time was the college. Now it's the university, and also Central High School, which was such a big part of everyone's life when it was the only high school in this town, which now we have multiple high schools throughout the Murfreesboro and the county. And kind of give me some thoughts and memories of those days of how MTSU or MTSC at the time and Central High School played roles in your lives at that time growing up.
Well, Cecil talked about being able to walk across the street to get to the campus. I was just 2 blocks up. I come down 4th Avenue with the bike, and if you took that loop that's still there and you rode your bike around the full loop, you pretty much saw 80% of the buildings at Middle Tennessee State College. It was a small, what they called land-grant college. And I got to tell you, being on campus a month ago for this lecture, I am so proud of that college. It's the biggest undergraduate school in Tennessee. But not only that, they've got the Honors College, they've got the construction and concrete management programs, which are, I think, just new and cutting edge and give great opportunities in education for people in our area.
Yeah.
Even before it was MTSC, it was the normal. And it was the land grant college, but it was built to be a
state teachers college,
to be a teachers college, and it was very integral in my family's life because we were in the merchandising business and they catered. There was Tennessee College for Women, where the central campus was,
right,
and that was that, and then there was Soul College down on Maple Street, and
Where on Maple Street? Because I've seen the sign over there.
It was past the electric department, which is now the housing authority.
Right, the old electric MED.
Yeah. But anyway, that's great for a town the size of Murfreesboro then and even now to have those educational institutions that have been so important to the growth of the community. And I think one thing I think about a lot of times as far as our family businesses go, that they would cater to the co-eds, to the women. And,
that's right. And the guys would follow.
And the guys would follow. My great uncle that
some things never change.
That's right. My great uncle that built this building that we're sitting in, he ran the shoe department at the old Elrod Brothers store, and his soon-to-be wife was from Chattanooga, and came with the girls, and he would try to sell them shoes. And my great aunt told me that her father got the bill from Elrod Brothers and said, well, what in the world are you going to do with 17 pairs of shoes? And she was going to see him, and they married not long after that. So, yeah, the MTS Normal, MTSC, MTSU has been a big part of this whole community.
Yeah, the businesses that your families both had, obviously Cecil, your dad had Cecil Elrod's French shop, which, took on, and moved into Nashville and all of that too. I always remember Demetria Kaladimos' wardrobe provided by the French shop.
Yeah.
And Demetria, we're going to get her on this show here before too long now, that she has revived the Nashville banner.
Mm-hmm.
But Rick, your dad, he sold shoes at Goldstein's, right?
He leased
the shoe department.
Right. He owned that shoe department and leased the space from Goldstein's. Now, he did this part-time because he also represented a shoe company manufacturer in St. Louis and had accounts all over the South. But we had that shoe department, and as a little kid, I would go down in they'd say, well, Ricky, go find a size 6 in this kid's tennis shoe. And so I'd go down there. I knew where the kids were, and I'd go back, bring them up, and so I got to participate a little bit. I think I was an unpaid employee, though, although I was paid in a lot of other ways. I had great parents.
You talk about the life cycle of the square, and you probably spread that out a block or two around, and all the changes that are going to be happening exactly where we're sitting and the things that are there. But in those days, it was the heartbeat of shopping.
Sure.
It was the retail center, then
and regional, not just Rutherford County.
Right.
Yeah.
But the downtown square was it, and the French shop, Goldstein's, J.C. Penney, the Hub store, things like that. Then you get to me being the carpetbagger from Murray County that came over here in the 80s. At that point, everything on the square had kind of changed. Yeah. And it was all lawyers' offices and government offices, and pretty much at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the square was done. Well, now, and it has been taken on a new life.
It's a revival, yeah.
It is, with all the restaurants and the entertainment and things that are going on around the square, it is now, from 8 in the morning until 2 the next morning, things are going on the downtown square, the restaurants. And then you think about, through all of that and all of the changes, there are two things that come into my head that have been threads all the way through. Number one, City Cafe.
Yep.
And it's been there 112 years. And Holden Hardware. Mm-hmm. And you go walk in Holden Hardware. If you want to go in, turn your clock back 30 years, your watch, as soon as you walk in, and go see Raleigh and the guys at Holden Hardware. And if you ever have a kid that says, well, what is a hardware store like? Yeah. Take them in. And that's what it was. We had Porter and Walker on the square in Columbia, and here Holden Hardware. And so it's kind of interesting in how the new life, and my friend Sarah Callender at Main Street, she's doing such a great job of making it such a vital area of town with, and we're getting ready. The Saturday markets will start back up. The Friday night concerts will start back up. It's just it's become such a vital place again.
Well, Chip, coming back from California, I've been here about 12 years back in town. And to see the vibrancy of Murfreesboro is just exciting. And I do understand, reading the newspapers, that Murfreesboro has been one of the fastest growing towns in America over the last couple of decades. And so you're going to get vitality and excitement going on. And I'm so happy it's happening on the square.
Yeah, it is. And that's where you all spent a lot of time, and a lot of the adventures in the book Ralph and Murray took. Now, as people read through, and is most books have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and this book has, as you mentioned, is a series of vignettes. But is there a critical moment in the book, or something that kind of wraps it all up in the end that you can tell folks about?
Yeah, well, I got to the. I think I told the stories I wanted to tell in this book, so I was looking to wrap it up, and so I sent them. I sent them to the car wash, and Ralph would go frequently with his mom around town to the grocery store and so forth. So they did a bunch of errands. They ended up at the car wash, and Ralph got locked in the car. They dropped the keys by mistake.
There seems to be a trend of Ralph getting locked into places.
Yeah, he's prone to being locked in. But Ralph goes through, and of course the radio's still on, and Elvis is singing "Hound Dog" appropriately,
yeah,
and other songs. And Ralph has a chance to think about his life a little bit. Think about that. I mean, Ralph is really personified. He's really kind of a person, but he's his own person, and he gets a chance to think about his life and think about what's important to him. And I kind of bring the story home that and I hope people think that, I need to think about what's important to me, and I do, or I don't, and I need to start doing it. And then Ralph says goodnight to Mom and Dad, to himself, and to Ricky and Tommy. And then the last thing he says, and last, goodnight, Murray. And that's how I end the book. And so that's the conclusion.
They became real pals through the adventures.
Yeah.
When Cecil, when he first started with this idea of putting this book together, and you became a real vital part of bringing back some of the memories. What has that kind of been like for you? Has it been kind of just a resurgence and flowing of memories?
It has been, and I've enjoyed doing things like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Rick's brought me along because we can sort of bounce stories off of each other, and
that's why
it's
when
fun.
because when we came to campus, it was great that you were there, but it really took it up a level when you both could kind of share.
Yeah.
Well, as I said before, we got together and talked about these stories, and that launched the book and the ideas from it. So I think for us getting together like today and reminiscing and talk about it, we get the biggest kick out of it. I hope everybody else gets a kick, but it's not bigger than the kick we get out of doing it and talking about it.
And I do want to do another show sometime just about the history of the radio station, because it is evolving, and here in the next year or so we're going to see much more. I mean, do you think your dad could ever imagine that here we are, and not only are people within the reach of the tower listening to us, but Brian can go over here and show me that that there are people in 18 different countries that are listening to us online, and that this show can go back and within 5 minutes you can go on the website and listen to it again on the podcast and all of that. It's kind of amazing where it's all come from.
Well, I think he would be very proud.
Yes.
that it's progressed the way it has. During World War II, he was stationed in Brazil, and his job was to put up remote radio stations throughout Brazil, because they didn't know if South America was going to get in the war or not. And that's there were a number of Tennesseans that were in the South America. You don't hear about that as much.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he'd be amazed. He had gone to engineering school at Vanderbilt, and to think that the town, both he and his father, would be very happy with the way the town's progressed.
Absolutely. Sure. Now, you did mention there is another version or another installment of Ralph and Murray. Kind of give us little roadmap of what we may be in store for.
Well, that's the next book on my list, and I've cleared the decks a little bit, so I've got time to start it. I'm researching now. It's going to take place a lot on the square in Murfreesboro. It's going to follow up with this whole ghost theme, and Ralph and Murray are going to be a big part of it, and Cecil and I will be in it. But there's going to be a main character, and his name is Neptune, and he's a ghost. And he fought with Nathan Bedford Forrest in the Civil War, and he died during that, but he never left town, and he knows a lot about things and people, and we're going to uncover some real mysteries in the next Ralph and Murray book.
So wow, I mean, we're taking this up a level here.
Yeah. We are. It's going to go from individual vignettes in each chapter to a real mystery story. And it's all going to take place in Murfreesboro.
Wow! And what's your timetable on when would you? I mean, obviously these things kind of have a life of their own, but this is what you do. So this is not a hobby. This is what you do. So how do you? What your process of putting this next book together? Do you outline, or do you kind of let it free flow?
Well, it's a loose outline. I get stories, ideas about what I want. I've been spending some time at the Rutherford County Historical Society.
Oh, with the Ransom Schoolhouse.
I have on Saturday mornings, and I've gotten a wealth of information and ideas about the time and places that Neptune the ghost lived in. So we're working on the research, and there's some ideas. I'll probably start writing it in the next couple of months, and it probably won't be out till next year.
All right. Well, Ralph and Murray is out now, and you can walk into Barnes & Noble here in Murfreesboro and purchase, or online at Amazon. Just search Rick Glaze, and you can find all of his books there and on Amazon. And, guys, it's been a quick hour, but, man, it's been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. We've enjoyed being here. I have, and Rick, I know has, and it's a fun way to talk about Ralph and Murray.
Absolutely. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to be it. And as we mentioned, if you missed any of this or want to re-listen, it is available on the podcast section of WGNSradio.com. That's it for the Roundtable today. Stick with us. Brian Baird coming up next right here on the Big G, WGNS. Have a great day.